specifically and not. Yeah. All right, we are live. What's going on, Aaron?
Not much. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Got a bunch of New Year's resolutions set up and ready to go.
No. Last year I had made a generalized statement that I wanted to read more this year, in 2020, and I did. So I'm going to say that goal is accomplished, and I want to do that again. I think this year, I want to expand it. Last year I had high hopes of reading a book a week, and that just doesn't happen with me. I just don't have that kind of tolerance. I wish I did. I mean, certainly, you hear stories of people that can read a book a day and so on and so forth, but just don't have that kind of tolerance for books. And but I'm warming up to it, so I think I'm going to try to grow off of that this year.
Well, that's it. They can't be giant leaps, right? You gotta be able to work it in and create the routine of it, because that's the biggest issue, right? I mean, especially traveling. Finding the time and getting it in, and yep.
Well, I had a good habit before COVID. I was actually reading more when I was traveling, so I thought it would be no problem, to read, because you read on the airplane, while you're waiting for your airplane, in the hotels and stuff, and so I was like, okay, I'll do like a book a trip, and then you get home, and you just get so busy with everything at home, and then school, you do in-house schooling, and by the time you get to finding like time for yourself, you just kind of want to go to bed.
Yeah. Is school for you guys staying virtual now?
We made the decision to send the kids back.
Okay.
We're going to wait for the next 2 weeks, because the public schools, if I'm not mistaken, are on virtual for the next 2 weeks. But our school is actually back in class today, but we elected just to keep the kids home for another 2 weeks and just see how things go.
Sure.
So we have notified the teachers that pending any major spikes, we're going to send them back in 2 weeks.
Nice. That'll create some, hopefully a little bit more normalcy back at the house.
I think so, yeah. With that, we were talking about travel, trying to get back to some kind of normalcy is, I think we're rapidly approaching that moment as best we can.
Nice. Cool. Well, I suppose we should jump into it. Right.
I'll read the inner half here.
Okay.
Leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush toward the danger. They put their own interests aside to protect us or to pull us into the future. Leaders would sooner sacrifice what is theirs to save what is ours, and they would never sacrifice what is ours to save what is theirs. This is what it means to be a leader. It means they choose to go first into danger, head first towards the unknown. And when we feel sure that they will keep us safe, we will march behind them and work tirelessly to see their visions come to life, and proudly call ourselves their followers. So in today, this section, this leadership lesson, actually really does focus on that third line there in that opening reading, where leaders would sooner sacrifice what is theirs to save what is ours, and they would never sacrifice what is ours to save what is theirs. In this chapter 18, where we talk about so goes the leader, so goes the culture, you quickly understand the difference between a leader who is more willing to sacrifice what is theirs for the benefit of the group versus go out and get your own and forget the group. Two different mentalities, but oftentimes we're put in that situation where we're out for the betterment of us and us only. We don't really care about what happens to everybody else. So the first section, slide 4 there, I before you, me before we, kind of sets that table for what we are talking about here when we talk about the leaders who put themselves first before the group. And you have good examples in there. The Merrill Lynch example, I'm mistaken the gentleman's name, but definitely was put into a position of power, and they give the example of use the corporate so on and so forth, and was really solely put out towards the benefit of himself and not the betterment of the company. Now, the hard part there is that you do almost have to sympathize with him a little bit because the way Merrill Lynch was set up, the gentleman had basically walked through hell and high water to get to that point. So he had felt like he had paid his dues essentially, and that's what we're talking about here is your company structured to a point where people pay their dues and then they feel like once they reach the finish line they could just put it on coast and collect checks, or are they constantly driven for the betterment of everybody? That's kind of what we're talking about here. Um, so it is really that top-down mentality that is a failure point when you have that. I've worked so hard to get to where I am, and now I'm just going to coast. That's kind of where this is leading towards. What you have is that dopamine intoxication. Now, remember, dopamine is that quick, oh, I'm excited about this, oh, I'm excited about that. So we have these dopamine incentives where it's like, okay, well, guys, if we meet the sales goal for the quarter, then we're all going to get a 1% raise. It's a short, quick hitter. It's not going to last very long. And what we end up having is a cortisol-driven paranoia. Remember, cortisol is the feeling of love, and it's the feeling of togetherness and groupness. And if you're too heavy on the one side of dopamine, remember back when we were talking about ESO, we were talking about finding that balance. And when you have this kind of top-down mentality, this Merrill Lynch example, you're fueling your entire group with dopamine-type incentives, which is just a quick-hitting, not long-term growth. And what you're left with is cortisol-driven paranoia, because people don't feel like that they're trusted. They don't feel like they belong. They don't feel like they are contributing to anything, because they just see this one person that basically marched through, got to the top, is now at the top, and now we just have to listen to what he has to say, otherwise we're going to get fired. So.
Lost you there, Aaron. Aaron.
So what you basically have is these factions that are going throughout your company, and that they're forming their own inner circles of safety to protect each other, but it's only 3 or 4 people versus like the entire company organization. You still have your outside dangers, but now you have inner dangers too. So, bad way of managing a company.
Yes.
Sorry, that was kind of a lot.
But yeah, but it is what it's all tied together. I mean, you can't. Yeah.
Headphones take crap on me.
No, you're fine. That is like you had mentioned, kind of with the Merrill Lynch example of the I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here, I guess the feel that you've earned it, right? Like, and again, it's like it's the selfish thought process that and again, do you feel bad? I mean, if you had to run through the crap you had to run through, but yet at the same point, when you get to that stage, and there's people out there that do. I mean, at all levels, where all of a sudden they feel, I've put my time in. Now I get to sit back and relax, and that is a pitfall. No matter how hard you've worked and what's come from it, the minute you start thinking like that, it is a downhill slope.
Towards money. I think really when you get to that point where your paycheck means more to you than the actual company itself, I think that's when you're struggling. I'm saying everybody's fit to be a leader because they're not, but somebody's got to drive the ship, and somebody does have to be on the top. But how you trickle down and how you formulate your teams and set your teams up, I think, is very, very important. If you're thrust into that position, there isn't a finish line. Your finish line is your retirement. That's your finish line. The finish line isn't when you get to become the president, the CEO, CFO, whatnot. You don't reach that finish line. You're just restructuring your goals. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So true
The
power.
next slide, they talk, true power. And, this is a good, there's a good example on this one, the Navy example. There's a Navy captain that it rose through the ranks very quickly, very good, honest individual. Um, and he got to a point where he was going to be commander of a certain submarine. I think it was the Santa Fe, I believe it was. And so he spent an entire calendar year studying the ins and the outs, every single bolt, nut, wire inside that submarine, as well as studying the crew, what the crew's strengths and weaknesses are. And just weeks before taking helm of the ship, he was switched to a different one and completely caught him broadsided. Because, can you imagine spending an entire calendar year, 365 days, studying one thing,
Yeah.
and then being told that it's not that anymore? I mean, that is enough to piss you off. I mean, to be honest with you, but it was the way it was, and they put him in that position because they understood that he had true leadership abilities. Because in the Navy, or in the military, you're not on an incentive based growth path. You're on a goal based growth path. It's not. It's two different things. If you set your goals and you make your goals, you're going to move up in the military. It's not based off incentives. So they put him in this position because this other submarine was failing miserably. The crew was like at the highest turnover, highest responsive rate. I think they said it was. Just wasn't really responding very well. And so he's put in that position, and what he was doing was running through a gamut of tests. And at one point in time, he had turned off the nuclear reactors that powered the sub, so it was running off of battery power only. And he had given the command to go all aheads 2/3 on the sub, and the CO, commanding officer, gave the command to the driver of the ship. And the driver of the ship sat there for a moment and turned around and said, "We don't have a 2/3 all head forward function on this ship." And that dumbfounded this commander, because he had obviously he was studying the other ship, but he'd asked the question of, why did you give the order if you knew that there was no all ahead 2/3? And the guy, the CO, had said, "Well, it's because you gave me the order." And that's the big difference, is because this person, the CO, had that top down mentality that I'm going to do everything that my supervisor tells me. I'm not going to do what's for the betterment of the group, but I was trained to do what I was told to do. So, and so I think from that point on, they tell the rest of the story about how this commander realized that in order for this ship to be effective, he needed to push all of the authority to those that are actually dealing with the situations at hand. So therefore, he gave specific instructions, specific authorities, rather than one person barking out what every single person was going to be doing on that ship every day, day in and day out. He empowered his people to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what is depicted here in this picture. Too many times we are structured in such a way that everything has to go up the pyramid to the person of centralized authority. And you see kind of quickly, it's kind of like that game of telephone. If the person in the outer circle gets the information, it's got to go from person to person to person. The information gets lost or buffed down. Excuse me. And the person that actually has the authority doesn't always get the true story. Likewise, it's got to go back down that pyramid. So it's not structured very well. If you're structured in the other way, where you're pushing that authority towards the outside and giving the people that are actually dealing with the information, that are dealing with the dangers, that are dealing with the everyday ins and outs of the companies, if they're given the authority to do their job and do it properly without fear of losing their jobs, stuff like that, they're going to excel. The group is going to be strong. The circle will be very strong, and the company will honestly be able to face anything that comes its way.
Yeah, it's that delegation, that I think is so crucial. You use the example of the Navy, and I think we've talked about this one in the past. I know that's one that I always go back to. It's commander's intent. So more of an Army Marines one, right? Where the statement is, I want to take that hill, right? So the commanding officer, I want to take that hill. It's not, all right, go down there, take that bunker, then march to the top of the hill. It's, I want to take the hill, and then you let your other people decide how they're going to get to the top of the hill, but they know the overall goal, right? Which is just another way to say, to go through what we just talked about here with the Navy. But I think that's something that, especially in our field, that we see, both sales, production, all that, is something that can be more widely accepted, right? Have the vision, give the direction of the vision, and trust that you have hired the right people at the right spots to go out and execute the vision. It just might not always be the exact way that you would have maybe have wanted to try to do it, right? But you're not out. You're potentially not out in the field day to day, right? Being able to make those calls. So, anyways, just ran across it today. So.
Well, I think that's very well said, because oftentimes we do think that way, that if we're in that position, if we're on the top of that pyramid, the apex of the pyramid, and we're put in that position, there's a lot riding on there. Whether you're a small family-owned business or you're a corporate conglomerate, and you're in a position of power there's a lot at stake there, and I totally get that. But if you are the one that has to cycle through every single thing that happens in the day, and you're not empowering and trusting the people to make the right decision, you're gonna burn out quicker than anything. And two, I think you're not going to have a very easy time trying to hire people, because nobody wants to work for somebody who's going to do everything for you.
Yeah.
People want to go. People want to learn. I'm not saying every time the right decision is made out here on the outer part of the circle, because people mess up, people make mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes. It's not just the people on the outside part of the circle; it's also the people on the apex too.
Yep.
So it has to be thought about. It has to be carefully thought about. It goes way back to our Jim Collins book, talk about getting the right people on the bus. I mean, the circles I reference, getting the right people on board, training them properly, empowering them to make those decisions. It just makes your life easier, the group easier.
Yep. 100%. And it's hard to see that. You got to just kind of trust. At some point, you have to trust, right? You got to put faith in the system, because I get it. I was a small business, and my name's on the side of the doors, right? I get that, right? It's your reputation, but you got to try. You got to put some faith in that. You hired the right people, and that people just want to succeed. They're not out to make the wrong decisions or do something that's going to jeopardize, the company. They don't want, that's not what they want to do. They all want to go home feeling comfortable at night, just the same as you do. So, yep. So this, what does this lead us into then for next week?
We're still just talking about the leadership lessons. So we're in leadership lesson number 3, chapter 19, integrity matters, which is, I believe it was actually one of my favorite chapters when I first read this. It talks a lot about integrity. I believe wholeheartedly, as a lot of folks do, in integrity and what it means and what it brings to the table. I think if you run a business with high values and high morals, nothing but good things can come of it. But if you run a dirty business, which I'm sure at some point in time we've all come across it, where somebody cuts corners, somebody throws people under the bus. It's just following. You always hear those stories. I don't know how those people can be so successful because they treat everybody like garbage. Those stories like that. That's where we're going now, is with the integrity.
I look forward to that. I've got lots to say on that side.
Yep.
Perfect. Same time next week, right? I think we're still good. I know we've got some traveling coming up here soon, so, but I think next week's still a clear week.
Yeah, we'll be good for one more week, and then after that, we might have some issues.
We'll move some stuff around. We'll figure out how to make it work on other dates or something. So,
Yeah.
perfect.
Right.
Awesome, Aaron. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.